Hero here for Umbra Games with the review of Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, released September 4th, 2018 in the US for PlayStation 4 and PC, and allegedly coming soon to Nintendo Switch as Dragon Quest XI-S. It's been a fair amount of time since we've seen a full-fledged core Dragon Quest title released on console here in the US, with the last being Dragon Quest VIII on PlayStation 2. Dragon Quest IX was released in the States on 3DS, and X was an online-only title in Japan only. Dragon Quest XI is a turn-based Japanese role-playing game where you take control of a not-quite-silent protagonist, you name yourself, who is discovered to be the reincarnated Luminary, the hero who is born to fight against the coming of the Dark One. Rumors spread about you being the one that actually causes the chaos and the coming of the Dark One himself, so while going on a quest to figure out how to fulfill your role, you'll encounter countless adversaries hindering your path. Dragon Quest XI features a progressively open world, where zones interconnect via transitional borders, not the series' traditional overworld map where you walk around with random encounters and interlocation icons. There are additional forms of travel as the game progresses that bring back the method of travel, complete with invisible random encounters, but the majority of the game you'll be confronting foes' avatars, which spawn the traditional menu selection, turn-based fights. Some recent RPGs like this give you initiative if you tackle the avatar from the back or with the action button, and Dragon Quest XI actually starts the fight with damage to enemy HP if you can manage to strike them by hitting the X button before they touch you, rather than giving initiative. Getting a full round of attack before the enemies get a turn does still happen, the frequency I think based on your party's charm stat. Enemy ambushes do happen infrequently as well. You end up accumulating quite the multitude of playable characters, of which you can use 4 in your party at any given time. For aesthetic appeal, you can actually move your characters around the battlefield in combat if you choose, but it doesn't change anything about the combat itself. There's a traditional camera view you can choose to take as well. There's no turn queue showing you who's up next, friend or foe, and there's not even a break in turns to show you specific rounds of combat. This takes a small period of adjustment, sometimes giving the illusion of an enemy or party member getting 2 turns in a row if they're the last one of one turn and the first of the next turn for some reason, without any kind of visual cue separating them. When single target attacking, you can choose from any enemy, but some abilities can be used on a group of enemies, which would be all the enemies that are the same. So if you're facing 3 slimes and 2 she-slimes, for example, you'd obviously have 2 groups. Each character has the ability to equip a handful of predetermined weapon types as well. The main hero, for example, can do one-handed swords or two-handed swords, both of which have a single target basic attack. Other characters will have daggers and whips, for example, the latter of which can hit a group of enemies with each swing. You level up traditionally, with enemy kills granting experience, and each level up awards a seemingly random number of skill points which can be applied to the character's unique skill tree. The skill tree is actually a set of tiles that start you in the middle and lets you choose from multiple paths for that character, to focus on a specific weapon type or something specific to their character class, and grants stat bonuses and new abilities accordingly. You can pay some money at the church to respec at any time as well. Each tile takes a set number of points, and each one you activate allows you to reach out to any other tiles touching it for your next upgrade. There are tiles locked behind question marks for upper tier abilities where you have to activate 4 of the tiles touching it in order to crack it open and make it available for purchase. Some of the tiles also hide hidden bonuses. There are also spells awarded at various character levels granted at level up time. Both spells and abilities gained from the tree can be performed in battle at the cost of MP. One thing that's fantastic for mage characters is how little MP some of the single target spells actually take in early game. I know I can often find myself just wasting turns with mage characters in games wanting to conserve MP for those longer exploration periods, and it's pretty nice here that you can kinda just use spells as often as you need. You can sub out characters using the tactics menu while engaged in battle, with the only penalty being you don't get to take an action with the coming in of the new character on that turn. You can even stop and change equipment while in battle without a turn penalty when needed. The game tries to alleviate some of the endless X button mashing for the easier battles, which is pretty common for the genre, by letting you select a behavior from the tactics menu. You can let your people go all out, choose for them to perform wisely, or have them not use MP or focus on healing. This will have characters doing their best without you micromanaging every turn. You can change these settings when there's a break in the party turn if you want to go back to taking command. Personally, I kind of enjoyed selecting attack, and I also felt I could do it slightly more efficiently myself, so I rarely use this feature other than for a bit of quick grinding on some low ability using mobs. One of the final pieces of battle for Dragon Quest XI is the pep moves. As a character performs attacks or takes damage, we're led to believe a hidden pep meter is filling up, or randomly activates I guess, and when full we'll launch that character into pep mode. Each character has a handful of things that increase while in pep mode, like their attack power, their critical hit rate, and the condition will last a few turns, and even carries over into other battles. Now, while the increase is nice, the true value of pep is something I've waited to see again since the Chrono RPG series, and that's these combination moves. As your characters learn different spells and abilities when they're pepped up, as well as multiple characters being pepped up at the same time, you can launch into fully cutscene combination attacks. Now, while it would be a bit more strategic to battle to be able to choose when to deploy the pep, instead of running around in circles before a tough fight, waiting until a character peps up and then taking them out of the party so you get the others pepped up, etc. This would be especially helpful for some of the side quests, which I'll touch on here in a minute, where an NPC will ask you to perform a specific pep move while fighting a specific enemy. Now, these combos perform a super wide array of elemental and status attacks, as well as healing and buffs. Similar to the RPGs of old, Dragon Quest XI is fairly linear in the way the world opens to you and its main quest structure. But as you move from town to town in this one, you'll find a variety of side quests delivered by NPCs that range from killing a special monster, to delivering something to someone in another town, to the aforementioned pet move demonstration. The rewards range from common goods to specialized loot, including mini-medals. Now, mini-medals, if you're not familiar, are a special currency in Dragon Quest games, where a special vendor somewhere in the world will take them in for rare items and unique equipment. In 11, they function as stamps on a card, where various thresholds along the path will reward you with an item. Mini-medals can also be found in chests scattered across the world. We've come a long way from the original Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior if you prefer, of wandering around in a dark cave scared to meet the dragon hiding there, only to discover he's the boss you need to kill in order to progress the game, as 11 shows pink bubbles on the map, marking locations or people to talk to that either are, or tell you the location of, your next main quest destination. Traditionally in Dragon Quest games, you use churches to resurrect and cure party members of ailments, as well as being the sole place to save the game. Now, spread throughout the game's dungeon and wilderness areas are campfires as well, protected by the holy aura of goddess statues. You can use these statues to do the same things you would do in a church, and the connected campfire lets your party camp, allowing you to rest and fully restore HP and MP, do some shopping if a merchant happens to be present there. You can change the time of day, or use the fun-size forge, the game's crafting system. The forge serves two purposes: crafting new equipment and reworking existing pieces. New pieces of gear require you to have a recipe found by searching red books and townspeople's bookshelves across the world, or granted as quest rewards. Once you have the blueprint, you need the necessary materials. Some materials can be purchased, but the most reliable way to find them is to look for sparkly spots on the map. Fortunately, these locations show up on your map screen, and once you've harvested that item in that area once, the map will even show you the item each point gives you when you're in that zone, making it super convenient to look for that last celestial skein you need. Enemies also drop these crafting components. There's even a nice in-game encyclopedia that will allow you to look up an item that you've obtained at any point and see what enemy it drops from or what region it's in, which then you can go to the bestiary for enemies you encountered, find out where they're located, and fast travel right to them. Once you have what you need, you engage in a little mini-game of sorts, where each piece you craft has a certain number of bars you must fill up by hitting the hammer on that section. Your goal is to get it in the small green area, but if you can hit the small diamond perfectly, you can get further bonuses to the equipment. Each strike from the base bash to the flourishes you unlock that add more or less points per strike take focus points, which the maximum of increases with every character level you gain. Now, if you fail in making a piece, you don't lose your materials, you actually get the equipment at its base level. If you can obtain those yellow levels of production by hitting that diamond though, you can get the equipment to +1, 2, or 3, and this is also where the reworking comes in. Any equipment obtained from shops can be reworked from their base level into an up to +3 version using what's called perfectionist pearls, which you are rewarded with every time you craft, and you also find some in chests and can purchase some. There's some unique equipment that can only be obtained through finding the recipe, which sort of made an odd upgrade situation. I found myself wanting to hit the blueprint for the next weapon for a character instead of purchasing what was in the store, as gold felt a little scarce without some serious grinding in the first probably 75% of the game. But waiting on all those things isn't really an alternative most of the time, as you'll find yourself getting undergeared pretty quickly. That said, there weren't a ton of situations in the game that felt truly challenging, with the exception of a couple boss fights that the enemies leading up to gave no real indication that you were going to be too weak. Characters have a head and body slot and can also equip 2 accessories. These include your basic rings and amulets that offer various stat and resistance bonuses. There are one-handed and two-handed weapons, and several characters can also open up a dual-wielding option. The game keeps track of enemies you encounter, weapons, and items you collect, so if you're a completionist and want to have delved into every nook and cranny in the game, Dragon Quest XI is a good one for you. There are also accolades you obtain from performing various actions, like collecting so much money, winning so many battles, etc. Some of these are tied to PlayStation trophies, and others are just there for the notification. There's also doors spread across the world and dungeons that are locked with one of 2 magic keys, which you have to make a note of and come back for, but luckily fast travel is pretty easy with the use of the zoom spell once a campfire has been camped at or a city has been visited. There's a casino, as seems to be pretty traditional for the series as well, with a couple of super great pieces of equipment you can redeem tokens for. You can buy tokens with cash if you want to grind that like crazy instead of playing the slots, some of which you can set to autoplay, so it's like they knew what a monotonous drag the side activity was going to be. And yes, there's one trophy related to performing casino accolades. Speaking of which, if you're wanting to platinum, I spent about 57 hours with the game and did about 70% of the side quests, actually probably pretty close to 70% completion all around. So you're in for quite a bit of a time sink if you're going to try to knock them all out. Oh, there's also a mount system where you can ring the bell near most cities and camps and summon a horse, but you'll also find some enemies in the wild that have golden sparkles that you can kill, and it will offer up a mount as well. This is used for a couple puzzles and navigation mechanics for hidden items as well as progression in a couple of places. Speaking of the dungeons though, and maybe I'm just wearing nostalgic goggles, but with maybe one or two exceptions, Dragon Quest XI's were almost too straightforward. You have a map you can access at nearly any time and adjust the floors up and down to look, but very few had some kind of mechanic or puzzle to solve to move forward. I personally miss that. Not to mention there's really not much resource management when dungeon diving. As I said, there are camps you can find in dungeons that replenish everything, and your current non-party members can heal people after battle. And with I think 7 being the most in your party at once, that leaves 3 non-combat people taking care of that. Speaking of that though, what an amazing shortcut to hit the triangle button to bring up the menu and square to auto-heal smartly. Not overfilling characters, and using the most efficient spells possible instead of digging out the heal spell and divvying it out to party members every time they need a little HP. This even includes resurrection and ailment removal. Now again, I try to be as spoiler-free as possible in my reviews, but I think it's worth noting in a review about the game's narrative structure. The first 40 hours of the game lead to kind of an ultimate destination that feels like it's going to be the end, only to really begin Act 2, which, after a series of rather lengthy cutscene-to-cutscene moments, opens up the game again, almost reaching levels of Final Fantasy VI's Dark World in its feeling. Not only that, but when you finish Act 2 and the credits roll, you get a to be continued and can work toward another true ending. Now, I stopped at the credit roll for now due to my impending backlog, but from what I've read and researched, you're looking at another 15 to 20 hours if you clean everything up here. So there's quite a bit of content. They did a really great job making unique character personalities for this game. The party builds very organically with a bright cast of characters that if you didn't see the initial loading screen or icons when you meet your new party member, you may not truly know who is going to join. Their classes work very well with their backstories, making everyone feel pretty genuine. The overall story hits moments of traditional high fantasy, but the way some objectives and content is delivered does get pretty unique. There are even a few moments that you thought for sure you knew what was going to happen and will surprise you. There are sections that are kind of cutscene heavy, and the game here is with the English voice cast that's pretty solid, so the quality of the scenes is high. The art style, while sticking to the overtly cartoony character style, adds a lot of textures to NPCs and enemies. The environments pack a lot of detail from blades of grass to wider, beautiful vistas. It's kind of nifty that instead of basing cities on specific indigenous landscapes, they instead mimicked cultures of the real world, with Gondolia's NPCs talking Italian to Honolulu's laid-back Pacific Island feel. There are tons of enemy animations, from spellcasting to some comical deaths, but it really just looks like a lot of work went into every detail there. Certain equipment sets can change the look of your party members too, but most regular armor pieces don't change their appearance. Weapons, however, do change. Overall, this is a very strong entry for the Dragon Quest series. There's a ton of content here, an extensive main campaign and quite a few side activities. Other quests do seem to stick to 4 or 5 rotating objective types in the dozens there are. The leveling system allows quite a bit of customization while still making characters feel unique. The art style is presented very well. The environments are very diverse. There are quite a few dungeons, even though most of them are kind of simplistic in nature. The crafting system lets you feel the reward of your extensive material and blueprint search. The story and its characters remain pretty interesting as you uncover characters' backgrounds, and to me it's great to see a AAA quality title bringing turn-based combat to the table. Rated as a turn-based role-playing game, Dragon Quest XI hits an 85 out of 100 on my scale of 0 to 100, where 50 is just average. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching.